Yes.
Hello, hello, hello. Recordings in
Well,
progress.
welcome to Dream Idiots. My name is Morris. That fellow is Bryan. And each week we normally bring you stories that we don't know about from each other, if that makes any kind of sense. We're doing something a little different this week, and we'll get to that in a moment. First, Bryan's going to tell you about what's been going on behind the scenes and how you can get a hold of us.
Happily, that's much easier to tell now than it used to be. We are still working on some technology stuff, websites, in progress. Not quite there yet, but you can now go to just dreamidiots.com. There's a contact us form. You can look at all the back catalog of episodes. Drop us a line if you want, and then you can hit follow, subscribe from there on any platform you want. So it's just our interface. So ever looking for us, looking for merchandise? Made some changes to the merch store in the past few days. It's all in one place. Just dreamidiots.com.
And that is awesome. And we'll be giving you updates as that rolls along into the future. This is episode 148, and normally I go first on even numbered episodes, and I will do so. But Bryan and I had a little talk a while back, and we decided something a little bit different for this episode because we're recording on Mother's Day, and this will drop the Tuesday after Mother's Day. I just got back from a late brunch with the wife and kids, celebrating her and what she does for our family. And one of the things we thought we'd talk about today well, is the women who kind of shaped us into the men we are. And when it's all over, you may wonder why one of us isn't behind bars. But we'll talk about that because Bryan and I have both. I lost my mom in March of 2023 after a battle with dementia, and Bryan's your mom passed back in October of
October of 2024.
2024. And I noticed something that both of our moms died within like a week of their next birthday.
Yeah, that is fairly common. I understand
Yeah,
I mean, they'll have apparently on a subconscious level, elderly folks especially will have a birth date coming, and they'll kind of have that as a target, and so they'll hit the date and then pass or get close. So yeah, my mom was 5 days short of 89.
mine was seven short of 82, 7 days short. My dad died 8 days before his 78th birthday.
Wow.
So yeah, maybe there is something to that. But we both lost our moms within recent memory. And so we thought we'd tell a few stories about our moms and some of the things they've done. I'll start with mine, Linda. Bryan, you knew Linda almost as long as I did. Uh, she, I'll start by just saying this. She didn't put up with a lot of nonsense from people. You may have noticed that.
Yeah,
Um,
that sounds right.
whether they could see
Uh,
her or not, or hear her or not. What happened the first time you met my mom? What was going on?
So
Do you
walked
remember?
into your house in San Antonio in Windcrest, and obviously I had met other mothers, other parents of friends of mine, and she. So that would have been sometime, presumably 86, I think.
Yeah, somewhere there.
And so in 1986, she would have been how old?
45, 40, yeah,
40.
40, 45. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I was confident it was going to be younger than we are now. And she, at first glance, she seemed very much like my mom. Seemed, happy, engaged, happy to talk to me. We were, shooting the breeze, asking questions about X, Y, Z, and just kind of, having fun, chatting. But the difference between your household and mine is that there is a big screen TV with the Spurs game on, and while mid conversation with me, she turns and yells at the TV, "God damn it, Garrettson, you motherfucker!" Daryl Garrettson being the referee that long tortured the Spurs, especially. It seems like wasn't Garrettson the one that got always tangled with Tim Duncan years later? I forget, but
I don't know. It might have been. Yeah, our buddy Dave always had something choice to say to Garrettson when he was
yeah,
officiating games in San Antonio.
yeah.
But you've kind of killed it. My mom could be a nice and sweet, and then in the next second, just oh, Bryan, it's so nice. Yeah, it's nice to meet you. I've heard a lot about you. You motherfucker. So, do you look, that kind of thing.
Right.
So I'll tell three quick stories about things that she's done. The first, one time we were on our ski trip in Colorado. We were walking around in Aspen, and this would be Aspen of the 1970s. And a drunk college-aged fellow wandered out of a bar, saw my mother, father, and I, and said something along the lines of, "Well, look at the cute little family out on the town." And my mother pushed him up against a lamppost and say, "What'd you say, you little asshole?" And and he might have wet his pants, but my father had to pull her off of him basically because she didn't brook to quote Tommy Lee Jones from the Lonesome Dove, she didn't like rudeness in a person. Um, Another time on another ski trip, another state, we if this continued, we might have run out of states to ski in. They were in Park City, Utah, and my parents walked into a steak place in Park City, and my dad was taking off his hat. He wore a flat-brimmed black hat, and
Hmm.
this lady said rather loudly, "Who does he think he is? Clint Eastwood?" And my mother turned on her just without missing a beat, says, "Matter of fact, you nosy bitch, he is Clint Eastwood." Um, so she didn't like smart asses. And the worst one she ever encountered was a neighbor we had that we referred to as the mean colonel. He lived across the side street from us, not across the main street, but the side street. And when they were building the swimming pool in our house, they built up a little ramp of dirt and pulled into the big field behind my house because it was easier than going up the alleyway, right? So they tore the fence down and they were digging out and everything. And I was back there playing with a friend, Stevie, and Steve and I were doing something. I don't know, playing with Star Wars figures, who knows what. And he comes charging up and says, "You tell your mother she needs to clean that crap off the road. I'm out there sweeping it up every day, and there's more and more dirt and crap where they're building stuff up." Meaning the dirt ramp on the curb to get.
Right, right. Chill out, dude.
So I went and told my mother, and he said, "What?" And I distinctly remember peeking through the slats of the fence at my mother. And Steve was next to me as my mother just, "Listen, you son of a bitch, you're no longer on an Air Force base or an Army post. You have to live with other people. God damn it." And he was really nice after that. So he went from being the
Huh.
mean colonel to the nice colonel. Yeah,
Funny how that
she,
happens.
yeah, I lucked out because all of my neighbors were retired military and they were all great except for him. He kind of got off on the wrong foot with everyone. So that's one of the characteristics about my mom I wanted to touch on was that she didn't put up with bullshit.
Yeah, that rings true, and yeah, I completely support that. I mean, try to be patient, try to be gracious, but some folks just have it coming.
All right. What you got about your mom?
Oh, okay. Um, so you may have heard this story before. My mom was, my little comparison there of our two mothers. My mom didn't really cuss, at all. I mean, she kind of learned how to cuss, I think, after her 70th birthday. Um, and only on one occasion in the last 5 years. I don't even know how this came up, but I, of course, I mean, our listeners know from this podcast, you and I tend to um, cuss a lot. My New Year's resolution every year is to cuss more in the new year, and every year I manage to succeed. Uh, on some random occasion, she told me, I, I don't like the word fuck. I don't like saying the word fuck. I would never say fuck when just in conversation. I would never say fuck you, fuck this, fuck off, fuck that hurt. And like, mom, you hate the word fuck, and you've said it like 6 times in 12 seconds. Like, what? I know, I got it. I understand, but your skills have improved here, radically as you've gotten older. Um, but she was just breathtakingly kind and patient until it came to someone pushing her children, as with the colonel next door. I told this story during her celebration of life. The house I grew up in was on the back of a cul-de-sac. And so this lot was sort of pie shaped. It's like, 20 feet across at the front and 150 feet across at the back. In the far back right-hand corner, there was kind of this, the hanging chad of our backyard, this little square that was 15 by 15 feet. And it was literally the graveyard. Our golden retriever had killed a cat or two, and my dad just, these cats mysteriously vanished without telling anyone in this little quadrant. And back during the 70s, when people were not so environmentally friendly, I mean, we would dump oil out there after my dad did an oil change. And it wasn't a desirable piece of land at all. this neighbor decided he was going to move a fence and claim this little hunk of land, which I thought was weird and weird that my dad wouldn't sort of fight him on it. And I was being a bit of a pill, and this backyard had to be mowed forever. And so one day I was just I decided to push this guy's buttons. He hadn't finished moving the fence yet, and so I was mowing and mowing and mowing. Had a thing full of grass clippings, and I walked into the garden and then dumped the clippings in this little quadrant of nothing, knowing it would get a reaction. I didn't think it would get a reaction immediately because he saw me do it. He came charging out. By the time he's outside, I'm 50 yards away, back across the yard, and he is steaming mad, yelling and screaming and calling me names, etc. And what I didn't realize at first is that our kitchen window uh, is open, and I'm surprised to hear a second voice yelling and realize, oh no, my mother's inside, who's now heard this. She starts yelling from inside, proceeds to charge out the back door and run basically to the middle of the backyard and just shouts this man down. I had never seen her raise her voice. I mean, I don't know for a fact that she was cussing, but in my mind, she must have been. I was like, "Oh, fuck!" And this guy vanished like he was a ghost. Like, okay, I'm not gonna win. I'm not gonna win this fight. He dematerialized, and she was red faced, like, "Mom, just it's okay. Maybe I had that one coming because I was definitely pushing him a little bit. It's okay. Just breathe. Just calm down." And she spun on me, just beat red and seething, said, "Nobody yells at my son." Like, oh, okay, okay, mom, got it. It's fine. Just calm down.
I can't imagine her apoplectic. I just can't.
I will harm you.
Your mom also she loved books, right?
Mhm.
And she ran a bookstore for many years too, a
Yep.
bookstore specifically for kids, as I recall.
It still exists. The original store is the Twig Bookshop here in San Antonio. There is still one location of that, and then that chain spawned off a store called the Red Balloon, which is a children's
Oh,
bookstore.
I
Yeah,
remember the Red Balloon.
yeah,
Sure, sure, sure,
it's up
sure.
off of I-10. Yeah.
Well, my mom, as you know, Bryan was a nurse,
Mhm.
and she was a pretty remarkable nurse. She met my father because she would work in the ER and the psych ward. Those were her two kind of rotations that she would go
Oi,
through as a nurse.
wow.
Yeah, so they always had stories to tell to each other and for each other. And so I'll share a brief one of her nursing stint. This occurred up in, I'm trying to think of what hospital it was, but they had a gentleman there who apparently was, I don't know, I don't remember the specifics of it, but he had some form of leprosy. And it was not the urgently contagious kind.
Mhm.
Um, but he was always in the hospital, and or it was something similar to leprosy where bits were, falling off. And and he would hang around, and they would find him like under the stairwell, just hanging out, shit like that. And one day they were giving, I believe, one of the board members of the hospital a tour of the new wing, and they wanted to show him what the new room looked like. And so she accompanied him in. There's a couple of the nurses with him, and one of the doctors, and there's someone laying under the sheets in this room. And they're like, "What is?" And the administrator kind of goes up, and he's about to pull the sheet back, and the guy suddenly sits up and he goes, "How's it going? I'm the friendly neighborhood leper," and then ran off down the hallway. And she had to
Hmm.
call security to, okay, he's at it again. He's scaring the administrators. Um, my mom also liked basketball, as you know, and we talked
Mhm.
about this a little bit. So I'll share this little story and throw things back over to you. She was a hell of a basketball player. She was all district back in the 50s. She's in the Llano Sports Hall of Fame. She had a really nice set shot and a good jump shot. And overall, she was a fine athlete.
And,
And
and I would imagine a fierce defender. I can see her being.
yes, she was a pest and a half. But she also recognized something early on about my high school basketball coach my freshman year. She watched a few games. She came to every game I played in, and she made an observation about him that rang true then, rang true, still is true today. That dumb shit can't coach. And you mentioned being a fierce defender during her high school career. One of her seasons, I think it was her sophomore season, came to an early end when a hard, cheap foul was committed against her. Some would call it a hard, cheap foul. She certainly did.
Mm.
She injured her knee, but she rehabbed over the season and came back the following year, which again I think was her junior year.
Hmm.
In the first game against this rival school, who had fouled her so violently, some would say flagrantly, she zeroed in on the player who had injured her for the season prior, and my mother may just have knocked her out of the game.
Oh,
And that player may have grown up to be Jody Conrad,
oh my
head
God.
coach of the University of Texas Lady Longhorns basketball team. But
Well,
I
she had
don't
it
know if,
coming.
but I don't know if that's, I'm assuming that's true. And I think the
Right, right.
statute of limitations is gone. So
Yeah. And
and
and Jody Conrad, I think, is long dead. So
I don't know. I haven't looked at her. Sorry. She gave a speech once for some cancer foundation in Houston, and Anna and I went, and I was really tempted to go. But hey, do you remember Linda Plant from Lano, Texas?
right, 60 years ago. Do you remember getting your ass kicked?
She was my mother was a tremendous Spurs fan until the day she died. She absolutely loved the Spurs. Some of my fondest memories are when she still went to games, going to games with her as a kid. Um, she in the famous Memorial Day Miracle game.
Mhm.
Remember that game where Sean
Yeah, yeah,
Elliott
sure.
hit the off balance going out of
Yeah,
bounds
with,
and he put
with,
his
with his
heels.
with his heels over the line.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she actually sat there and said, "Oh God, I can't look." And she looked to the ground and missed what is quite possibly the greatest play in Spurs history.
Hmm.
But she also could have it in for the other teams quite a bit. One time in probably 19, she had a green Lincoln Continental, so it was 78, 70, no, it must have been 79, maybe even 80. It had to be because a friend of hers nephew was in town. He was a few years older than me. I'll call him Billy. So Billy and I were going to go to the Spurs game, and he wanted to go early because he was from the East Coast, and he wanted to get Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Magic Johnson's autographs.
Hmm.
And Mom just knew where to park in between the places down at the old Hemisphere Arena
Right, right.
where we might spy them coming through. And sure
Yeah,
enough,
because there was that funky little weird courtyard where the players
right,
would park, and there was no underground anything. They had to walk through that one little
yep,
gap there. Right, I
yeah,
remember.
or
I
the
got
buses, yeah, the buses
yeah,
would park over. So,
yeah.
so we pop out, and here come Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Magic Johnson, and we politely, hey, Magic, can we have your autograph? They totally blew us off. No, no, kids, we can't. No, and just walked away.
Hmm.
And my mother and her friend were out of that lime green Lincoln Continental like a shot. And immediately, you
Yeah.
sons of bitches,
Right.
who do you think makes you what you are? It's your fans, god damn it. And that my mother cursed out Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
A victimless crime.
Victimless crime. Anyway, I'll throw it back to you for hopefully nicer stories about your mom.
Right. Well, so I'm the youngest in my family by a number of years, and so so in the mid '70s, we had a gold Buick station wagon. I think it was the Buick Estate station wagon. It was
Hmm.
the battleship that had the third row rear facing seat,
Oh yeah,
which
yeah,
which
yeah,
which
yeah.
which was always awkward because you're just staring at the drivers behind you. Um, and it was back when at least American made cars of that vintage. If you bought the silver car, it was just gray, and if you bought the gold car, it was just kind of a weird Dijon. It wasn't shiny
Kind
or reflective. It
kind
was
of a
just,
mustard.
mustard.
Oh, not yeah, yeah.
Oh, great. And so, my siblings are off. I mean, I'm especially then, a natural introvert, read a whole bunch, and I wanted my siblings to leave me the fuck alone. So, oh, you're fighting upstairs? I'll be reading in the backyard. Oh, you're outside doing yard work? Oh, I'll be reading it, whatever. I'll be laying reading the encyclopedia in the upstairs hallway. Leave me alone, right? But I bombed around with my mom like crazy because they were off doing, other stuff, virtually all the time. And so by the time I started my fifth grade year, they're now gone. They both graduated from high school, and so I was functionally an only child. But I didn't really need any help, and so I was it was kind of we had a weird partnership going where we all worked together to get me to adulthood, but they weren't really parents in any in any reasonable sense. Yeah, I can figure this shit out. I'm okay. And I realized pretty early on, certainly by high school, this is a pretty easy gig. I got to mow the yard a whole bunch, and I got to do my own laundry, but they're kind of leaving me alone. And I was working a little bit and had some allowance, and life was pretty good. Not really going to rock the boat too much. Around the same period of time, my dad starts snoring like crazy, and so my mom, at some point in early mid '80s, moves down to the now vacant extra bedrooms, and she, so for 3 or 4 years, she slept every night down the hall from my dad. He would go to bed early, and she and I would just, so I'd be up, doing homework, whatever. She'd be headed into bed, and probably 2 or 3 nights a week, every week for years, we just shoot the shit, and I would be standing in the hallway, standing in her bedroom door, virtually every night, just yammering about
Hmm.
stuff and about nothing, playing music and just shooting the shit. So, 87, 88 rolls around, and on a Friday or Saturday night, I probably had a curfew of midnight, I think, and was with, one random night was with two people that out bombing around. We had gone somewhere, and I was like, you know what? I mean, maybe I need to be getting back. And was in didn't have my car, was in one of their cars, and they didn't know they were taking me home to drop me off. They thought they were taking me home, and I was going to run inside and ask for permission to go to some other party. Like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not rocking the boat. I got this is an easy gig. I'm not pissing these people off. And so pulling in the driveway at like 11:15, 11:20, I think, oh, okay, I'm good. I'm getting out of the car. They're now instantly pissed off because they thought I was going in to ask for permission to go somewhere else. No, no, no. You guys are dropping me off. You guys can both fuck off now. Go do whatever the hell you're gonna go do. I'm going inside. But when we pull up, which is very unusual, uh, the dining room and living room face the cul-de-sac, face the street,
Hmm.
and seemingly every light in the house is on. I'm like, oh fuck, I'm in trouble. I don't know what the hell's going on, but this is bizarre. And so I hop out of the car thinking, I'm in. I there was some miscommunication. I was supposed to have been home a long time ago, and I'm in deep shit. Walk in the front door, and my mom goes, "Oh, hi," and I'm like, what the hell's going on? Oh, we're just up finishing up a movie, and they were just up. They happened to be up. I'm like, oh fuck, thank God. And it's like, so I don't, I'm not rocking this boat to save my life. And then it was fine. Those two friends, were pissed at me for like a week after that. I'm like, well, sorry guys, I'm not pissing these people off at all.
Can you tell me off air who they were?
Yes.
Okay, I think I knew who it was. DM, MP, maybe
Uh,
GG.
those, those
Oh,
those first two.
okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well,
They were going to go off and probably smoke some dope, and I didn't. I was not doing that much at the time, so I was maybe that's a bad idea.
I was in a similar situation. My mother, I didn't really have a curfew, but as long as I let them know where I was and who I was with,
Right,
it was okay. Once I started driving, that got a little bit more problematic because it was
right,
me doing
right.
the driving. Um, my mom had an extraordinary number of talents that most people didn't know about because she was very reclusive towards the end of her life. But she was a marvelous 42 player, which is a domino game, and she was a marvelous poker player as well. She was a
Hmm.
very good poker player, and she enjoyed going to Vegas. And for a span there in the '90s, she was going to Vegas just about every 6 months. She'd go to Vegas 2 or 3 times a year, to the point where I walked into the Monte Carlo to sit down at the bar, have a drink because I was still drinking then, and maybe play a few hands of video poker. And I
Hmm.
started talking to the guy, and he just looks over and goes, "Are you Linda's kid?" You, because I had a Spurs hat on or something. And he's like,
Okay.
"Hey,
I was just thinking,
yeah,
you
you're
don't
Linda's
really
kid."
look alike. Like, how do you pick that out?
And I would occasionally, like once or twice, I surprised her when I was living in Salt Lake. I'd catch a Southwest Fun flight down to Vegas and just surprise her and show up for a day and hang out with her in Vegas.
Right.
And she enjoyed that gambling, man. She said she knew where all the hot machines were. More often than not, she came back. She came back at least even.
Right.
Sometimes she would come back way ahead. Um, so yeah, we had some fun times in Vegas. She was a hunter and a fisherwoman. She was she was raised in the country. She would ride a horse to school bareback and then slap the horse on the ass and make it go back home, and then she'd walk
Oh,
home.
wow.
Yeah, because
In
the
what
horse knew where to
year?
go. So, oh, this would have been, she was
50s?
probably 10, so this would have been the early 50s. Yeah. She lived out in the middle of nowhere, man. She was born in a house on the side of the
Yeah, but
road.
I mean, that's like wild, wild west shit. I mean,
Yeah.
that's incredible.
And everybody there knew whose horse it was, so they wouldn't mess with it. It's like, oh yeah,
Oh, that's
that's Donald's
Nelson.
horse. That's Donald McCall's horse. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So um anyway, so she was a hunter, fisher, horsewoman. She could ride a horse very well. I often remember going on all day fishing trips up and down the Llano River with my mother and grandmother, and we would get horribly sunburned. She was a better than average snow skier. She was better than she thought she was, but she had a tendency to go down trails she should have not gone down, which would invariably somehow be my fault or my
Right, of
father's
course,
fault. And
clearly.
the time I will never forget, we were skiing. This happened in Utah, and she wiped out under the chairlift, which is always bad. And it was a heavy powder day. And I'd made it to the bottom of the trail. And I was kind of looking up, and there's not much I could do, except watch her, try to find her skis. And she's at it for a good 10, 15 minutes. And, you know, enough to where people were like, do you need help? What do should we did it? This one guy yells from the left, "Are you sure you had two?" And you can
Uh,
imagine that you could hear her curse words
Shut the
resounding
fuck
down
up.
down the mountain and all the way down Parley's Canyon. You could hear it probably at Temple
Right.
Square in Salt Lake City.
You can't park there, crap like that,
And she didn't have a pilot license, but I found this out much later. She knew how to fly a plane. And I didn't notice
Damn.
until I was probably in my 30s. I was like, you can fly a plane? She goes, yeah, I can. Yeah, I can take off. I can land. I was like, oh, that's two of the important
That's
parts. That's
right. The most too important.
She had a friend who had the small, Cessnas, so she would go up and take the take the rudder and fly. And the other thing that astonished me about my mom, and this is where I'll wrap up with my mom's part of the story, is that she had an incredible amount of generosity in her that people didn't know about. Um, she had, and this happened for a long time. You may recall that I told a story about Prophet John when we first started this podcast. It was like
Yeah,
the first
forever
10
gone.
episodes about a man with some issues emotionally and mentally who would chant and dance in the street and carry large signs and very odd behavior. Clearly, something was up with him. He had a deal. My mother would make sure he had something to eat. She would stop and go get him food at Whataburger and take it to him. And she had another guy she knew. She called him the scruffy old man. It was this homeless guy who unhoused guy, I guess we would say, who was, it always looked like he was about to go to some kind of day job. He had jeans, work boots. He wasn't what you might call emotionally or mentally incapable of doing so.
Right.
And he always had a little dog with him that my mom said, the dog was as scruffy looking as he was. The dog had a little beard, he had a little beard. And whenever she saw him, she would take him food. And she had an annual tradition where she would find him on Thanksgiving and take him a plate of Thanksgiving food and sit with him for a while. And he would insist on sharing the plate with her. And
Mm.
more than that, she would sit and just talk with him,
Right.
which
Which
I
is what
always
they really
thought
want, right?
was the important part of that transaction was
Hmm.
talking with him. So in that respect, she was could be an incredibly generous and nice woman. And my uncle once said of her, she never met someone she didn't like at first, because she could make a friend on an airplane. She could make a friend playing slots in Vegas. She
But
could make a friend sitting on the chairlift going up the mountain, right? When she was skiing. So that's one thing I will never forget about my mother.
right.
Throw
Yes,
things over to you.
agreed. Well, there were a couple things in our recent celebration of life that I chose not to share because they were a tiny bit off color. I mean, since my mom passed away at the end of 2024, I've gotten a lot of cards and notes and people commenting on how she helped with this, her graciousness, her kindness, how she was patient, how she helped out with just being sort of emotionally available. And she was just incredibly emotionally intuitive. She could just pick out, she could walk into a room with 100 people and she could know the person who was going through the whatever the strife that day,
Right. Right.
and could be an advocate. One of the things that I love to do sort of for her that I don't really apologize for is um, she was very grateful for her life. She loved to laugh, and I think I can say without fear of being boastful that I was the best at making her laugh, and I could get her going on some things that were probably probably a little bit unkind. But on one occasion, I'm sure 20 years ago now, I have no idea where she and I were flying. Again, on Southwest. I'm a big guy. She was routinely over 200 pounds. Southwest, then as is now, not the roomiest seats.
Nope.
And they do the cattle call seating. She and I got on this plane, and we're 80% to the back. So 737, so it's three and three, and she takes the window, I take the aisle, and there's a seat in the middle. And now we're playing passenger roulette, right? It's like, okay, will we get to keep the seat in the middle
Right.
empty?
Yeah.
And then you're basically praying for the 12-year-old who's traveling by themselves, or
Hmm.
the 100-year-old who weighs 100 pounds.
Yep.
So, and we're sitting there looking at the door, and no one's coming, and no one's coming, but they haven't closed the door yet. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? Waiting, waiting, waiting. And then she and I both sort of go pale when this very, very large woman gets on wearing a pink dress and what I can only describe as a pink sombrero, this huge, wide
Oh
brimmed
God.
pink hat. And we're like, oh, fuck. And I duck my head and I instantly sort of start thinking that it's funny. Um, and she realizes I'm starting to laugh, and the guy across the aisle to my right is he sees what's coming as well. And I started singing very quietly to myself, or I mean, within earshot of them, both of them, obviously. Isn't she lovely? Isn't she beautiful? And they're both. I mean, nothing is funnier to me than people trying not to laugh when they know when they
Oh
know it's
yeah.
truth. It's
George
hilarious.
Carlin said it.
All
Nothing's
right.
funnier than suppressed laughter. Yeah.
And now I have my mom's tears just running down her face, and this guy next to me as well. He's more upright, looking like and again he's just trying to keep it together. And then on a similar occasion, I had to take her to a doctor's appointment at one time, and I don't know what it was about. Some of her doctors were great. Some others were just you'd have a 2 o'clock appointment and you wouldn't see anyone until 4, and there'd be 30 people in the waiting room. We were waiting around, waiting around, waiting around, getting bored, and again, a very very large man wearing dark jeans and a that dark purpley blue color like a sweatshirt comes in
Hmm.
and sits down 3 feet from me, directly across from me. And I'm getting a little irritated because, in the waiting room for over an hour, just for an eye exam for her, waiting and waiting and waiting. And then I can see that she's getting tickled because she stopped talking and she is sort of busying herself with other things in her lap, and she's trying not to laugh. I have some some paper, some forms in my lap, and I have a pen. Like, okay, I'm not gonna get you. I turn the paper over and I scrawl something on it, and I just hand it to her, and then I turn away. And what I wrote was, "Why is he dressed as a blueberry?" She again crying, laughing, not making a sound, but is barely keeping it together, and then proceeds to grab her purse and basically bury her head in her purse because she's now decided she has to find the tic tac she lost 6 months ago. She's just trying to busy herself any way she possibly can to keep from just laughing. So apology.
I
That's
think there's a hole
wildly
to Narnia
unkind.
somewhere.
Very mean spirited, but there. I
Ugh.
mean, if I can get my mom to laugh, I would do anything to do that. And so it's always very, very gratifying to get her to laugh to the point where she could barely keep it together. Yeah, miss my mom terribly. I found just a couple days ago. Right here is the birthday card she gave me just a year
Oh,
ago, and the end of it is. Happy day to you, dear fellow. A precious sounding board and a really good friend.
Oh, Bryan, that's lovely.
So,
My
wow.
God, that's
So, sucks to lose your mom. Be grateful if you still have your mom and she's with you and you have a good relationship and you have fond memories. Be grateful. Be nice.
yep,
Be a resource because they're not around forever.
yep. And my favorite story of your mom is when she decided she didn't like her name anymore.
And she
She
basically decided for 10
she's
days, call
she
me
wanted
Harriet.
call me
Okay.
Harriet from now on. And she said then she said she was just doing it to jerk your brother around, which I thought was
Like, have you had a stroke? What are you talking about? You want to be called? Okay, whatever.
um my mother was laid to rest. She was cremated and her ashes were interred between her stepfather and my grandmother, where she wanted to be in the Texas Hill Country. Pretty much, I mean, she is literally buried like 4 miles down the road from where she was born,
Mm,
between Bluffton and Llano there in Central Texas. But what I appreciated about your mom, Bryan, is I talked with her a couple times. I went to see her a couple times when
right.
my mom was in the throes of dementia that we didn't realize was as bad as it was until it really, really got bad. And she kind of sat down and just talked to me and listened to me for a good hour each time. And by that time, there were times when my mother didn't recognize me.
Hmm.
And so she was a mom to me when my own mom couldn't be there for me.
Right. I
And
didn't really know that. That's
and I will
that's
never forget
that's
that kindness that she showed me. That was
right.
she was a real special woman.
But well,
And
I agree.
yeah. So and my mom was what you might call a pistol who stomped on the terra. She definitely, for a girl from a little town in Texas, she traveled the world. She, did all kinds of great stuff. So,
Well, and
um,
was they both had at a base level probably a similar upbringing, but kind of maybe had a different outcome
yeah.
in terms of their emotional approach. Because my mom, unfortunately, didn't have much self esteem, but I have very very clear memories of hanging out and shooting the shit with your mom and getting her laughing about stuff. Because she could also laugh at stuff that was even more off color.
Oh,
Um,
yes,
but
absolutely.
um, but you know, I know I always felt completely welcome
Yeah.
and supported. And I remember I had Thanksgiving with you with them and you and your wife and your two children when they were your kids were
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
2 and 4. So I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah. I
yeah,
remember
yeah.
that night.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
20,
Yeah.
yeah, pushing 20 years ago. Yeah.
Close. Yeah. But probably about 16 years ago,
Yeah,
15, 16
yeah,
years.
yeah.
Yeah. Makes
Yep.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Insane.
Yep.
The time just keeps flying.
But I will echo what Bryan said. Go hug your mom, hang out with
Yeah,
her, tell her a joke. And, again, appreciate your moms while they're here. And,
absolutely.
happy Mother's Day to you moms out there. My niece is a relatively new mom, and I just heard from her. She's got a lovely son, and she's celebrating Mother's today. So my niece Caitlin is out there having a good Mother's Day, and that's all I really got for this Mother's Day edition of Dream Idiots.
All right. We'll be back, next week with more of the typical fare, I guess you could say. Check out dreamidiots.com. Please like, share, and follow. You grab our stuff, post it on Facebook, make your friends listen to us, download our shit. We're hoping to become as big as the Catholic Church here soon. So, no, not really. I take it back. But
Look of horror on my face.
we appreciate you hanging in there with us
Uh,
and listening each week.
how about that American Pope?
Ah, good old Bob. He's a White Sox fan, and
I've been,
apparently he's part Creole.
yeah, and I've been singing the song "American Woman" by the Guess Who, but I've been American Pope. Anyway, yes, that is it from here us this week. Hope you had a good Mother's Day if you're out there, and be good to each other.